In the quiet of the evening, Namdi and Amora sat together in their modest home, their fingers intertwined, but their hearts weighed down by a sorrow they could not escape. The room was dimly lit by a single lantern, casting long shadows on the walls adorned with their wedding photos. Namdi's strong, broad shoulders slumped slightly as he gazed into the distance, lost in thought. Amora's eyes, usually bright and lively, were now clouded with a mix of sadness and hope as she leaned her head on his shoulder. As the days turned into months, the unspoken tension between them grew. Namdi began to stay out late, throwing himself into work to avoid the pain of returning to a home filled with reminders of their unfulfilled dreams. Amora, on the other hand, spent her days visiting various healers and doctors, searching for a miracle. Each night, they would lie beside each other in bed, their backs turned, the silence between them louder than any words. As Amora walked through the bustling marketplace, she could feel the stares burning into her back. The women who once greeted her with warm smiles now exchanged knowing glances and whispered behind their hands. The men, who had always respected Namdi for his strength and integrity, now avoided his gaze. The village buzzed with gossip, each story more exaggerated than the last. Back home, the pressure from their families was relentless. Namdi's mother, a stern woman with a sharp tongue, did not hide her disappointment. During a family gathering, she loudly questioned Amora's ability to bear children, her voice dripping with disdain. Amora's parents, though more subtle, often urged her to try harder, to be more patient, as if she hadn't already done everything in her power. One evening, as the couple returned home from yet another disappointing visit to the clinic, they were approached by an old man with a mysterious aura. His eyes were sharp, almost too sharp, and his voice carried a weight that made them stop in their tracks. He introduced himself as a traditional healer, one who could help them where modern medicine had failed. Though Namdi was skeptical, Amora was desperate enough to listen. The healer invited them to his home, a small, isolated hut on the outskirts of the village. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of burning herbs and the walls were lined with strange artifacts. The healer spoke in riddles, his words laced with hidden meanings. He offered them a solution, but his eyes gleamed with something dark as he warned them of the price they would have to pay. Amora, her heart aching with desire for a child, was ready to agree immediately, but Namdi hesitated, sensing the danger. The healer provided them with a set of instructions, each step more bizarre and unsettling than the last. The ritual involved rare herbs, ancient chants, and an act that went against every moral they held dear. The final step was the most shocking, something that no couple would ever consider. Namdi tried to persuade Amora to abandon the idea, but her desperation drove her to convince him that this was their last hope. On the night of the ritual, the couple sneaked out of their home, avoiding the curious eyes of the villagers. They made their way to a secluded forest, where the healer had prepared a sacred space. The air was thick with anticipation as they followed the instructions to the letter. Each step felt like a descent into madness, but they pressed on, driven by their desire for a child. As the final act was completed, a chilling wind swept through the forest, and the couple felt a dark presence envelop them. Days after the ritual, Amora began to feel different. Her body ached in ways it never had before, and strange dreams haunted her sleep. When she discovered she was pregnant, the joy she felt was overshadowed by a lingering sense of dread. Namdi, too, could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Their once vibrant home became a place of shadows and whispers, as they both sensed the curse that had come with their long-desired miracle. As Amora's pregnancy progressed, strange things began to happen. Objects in their home moved on their own, shadows seemed to linger longer than they should, and Amora began to hear whispers in the night. Namdi, though strong and fearless, found himself waking up drenched in sweat from nightmares he couldn't remember. The couple tried to ignore these signs, focusing on the baby they had longed for, but the fear in their hearts grew with each passing day. When Amora's pregnancy became too obvious to hide, the couple reluctantly shared the news with the village. At first, the villagers were overjoyed, after all, they had witnessed Nnamdi and Amora's long struggle to conceive. But as time went on, rumors began to spread. The strange occurrences surrounding the couple could not be ignored, and soon, whispers of witchcraft and dark rituals filled the air. Elders and religious leaders in the community began to distance themselves, and what was once a source of joy became a point of fear and suspicion. Nnamdi and Amora found themselves increasingly isolated. Friends who once visited regularly stopped coming by, and neighbors began avoiding them. Even in the marketplace, Amora noticed the way people looked at her, their eyes filled with fear and judgment. The couple's home, once a place of warmth and love, now felt like a prison, surrounded by invisible walls built from the community's suspicion and rejection. The day of the birth arrived, and it was anything but ordinary. The midwives who attended to Amora were seasoned and unshakable, but even they were unnerved by the strange occurrences during the delivery. The room seemed to grow colder, and the candles flickered as if an unseen force was playing with them. When the child was finally born, the midwives exchanged uneasy glances. The baby, though healthy, had an unsettling aura, its eyes were too knowing, too old for a newborn. As the baby grew, the villagers' fear turned to outright hostility. Strange things continued to happen around the child, animals acted strangely in its presence, crops withered inexplicably, and storms seemed to brew out of nowhere. The villagers began to believe that the child was cursed, a dark omen brought upon by the couple's desperation. Soon, a movement began within the village to banish Nnamdi, Amora, and their child before the curse could spread further. The village elders, once respectful and wise, now stood as accusers before Nnamdi and Amora. They demanded that the couple leave the village immediately, taking the child with them. The elders, believing the child was a curse, warned that if the family didn't leave, they would take matters into their own hands. Nnamdi, ever the protector, stood tall and defiant, but the fear in Amora's eyes was unmistakable. They had nowhere to go, and the child they had longed for was now the source of their greatest danger. In a desperate bid to save their family, Nnamdi and Amora decided to confront the healer, demanding that he undo whatever curse had befallen them. They returned to the secluded forest where the ritual had taken place, the air thick with the same sense of foreboding as before. The healer, however, revealed that the curse was irreversible, the price of their desperation. But he hinted at one final, unthinkable solution, one that would demand an even greater sacrifice. Nnamdi and Amora were faced with an impossible choice. To save their child, they would have to give up something even more precious. The healer's words echoed in their minds as they wrestled with their decision. As much as they loved their child, the weight of the curse was too great to bear. With heavy hearts, they made the decision to go through with the final ritual, knowing it would forever change their lives. The final ritual took place in the dead of night, under a blood-red moon. The healer led them through the dark forest to a clearing they had never seen before, where the air was thick with the scent of incense and the ground was covered in strange symbols. As the ritual began, Nnamdi and Amora could feel the life force draining from them, but they held on, knowing this was their only hope to free their child from the curse. The ritual culminated in a blinding flash of light, and when the couple regained consciousness, they found themselves alone, the child gone. When Nnamdi and Amora returned to the village, they were met with silence. The villagers, sensing that something had changed, kept their distance, but the hostility had faded. The couple was left alone, their once vibrant home now a place of mourning. The village elders, though still wary, allowed them to stay, but the question of what had truly happened to the child lingered in the air, unspoken but ever present. Though the curse was lifted, Nnamdi and Amora could never forget the child they had lost. Strange occurrences continued to happen in the village, though less frequent, and the couple was often seen wandering the forest, as if searching for something that was lost to them. The villagers, though more accepting, still whispered about the couple and the dark events that had surrounded them. The healer, too, disappeared, leaving behind only questions and a sense of unfinished business. As days turned into weeks, Nnamdi became obsessed with finding out what truly happened during the final ritual. The loss of their child weighed heavily on him, and the sense of unfinished business gnawed at his soul. He began to search for clues, combing through ancient texts, visiting neighboring villages for answers, and even returning to the forest where the ritual took place. Amora, though grieving, tried to pull him back to reality, but Nnamdi's obsession only grew stronger. In his search, Nnamdi stumbled upon an old village legend that had been long forgotten. It spoke of a similar occurrence many generations ago, a couple desperate for a child, a mysterious healer, and a ritual that resulted in the disappearance of their newborn. The legend hinted at a hidden place deep within the forest where the souls of the lost children resided, bound by the same dark forces that had claimed them. Nnamdi became convinced that their child's soul was trapped there, and he vowed to find this hidden place. Determined to find the hidden place mentioned in the legend, Nnamdi set out on a perilous journey into the heart of the forest. Despite Amora's pleas to stay, he was resolute, believing this was the only way to bring peace to their child's soul. The forest, however, was unforgiving, filled with treacherous paths, dangerous creatures, and the constant feeling of being watched. As he ventured deeper, the forest seemed to come alive, challenging him at every turn and testing his resolve. After days of searching, Nnamdi finally stumbled upon the hidden place, a sanctuary deep within the forest that was unlike anything he had ever seen. The air was thick with a strange energy, and the trees formed a natural barrier around the clearing where the ground was covered in glowing symbols. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone altar, upon which rested an ethereal light that pulsed with a rhythmic beat, as if it were alive. Nnamdi felt drawn to it, sensing that this was the key to freeing his child's soul. As Nnamdi reached out to touch the light, a figure materialized before him, a spirit guardian, ancient and wise, with a presence that radiated both warmth and immense power. The guardian spoke in a voice that seemed to echo through the entire forest, revealing that the light was the essence of the lost children, bound by the same ritual that had claimed them. To free the children, Nnamdi would have to prove his worth, facing trials that would test his courage, his love, and his very soul. The trials were unlike anything Nnamdi had ever faced. Each one tested a different aspect of his character, his bravery, his love for Amora, and his willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. He was confronted with illusions of his deepest fears, forced to relive his most painful memories, and tempted with visions of a life without the burden of his quest. But with each trial, Nnamdi grew stronger, his resolve hardening as he remembered why he had started this journey in the first place. Having passed the trials, Nnamdi was granted an audience with the spirit guardian once more. The guardian revealed the final truth: the child's soul had not been taken by a curse, but rather transformed into a beacon of hope for those who would come after. The ritual had indeed claimed the physical form of the child, but the soul had ascended to a higher plane, where it would guide other lost souls to peace. The guardian offered Nnamdi a choice: to join his child in this higher realm or return to the village, forever changed by his journey. Nnamdi chose to return to the village, bringing with him a sense of peace and understanding that he had never known before. When he arrived, the villagers were stunned by the change in him. He was no longer the man consumed by grief and obsession, but someone who had seen beyond the veil of the physical world. He shared his story with the villagers, speaking not of curses but of love, sacrifice, and the mysteries that lay beyond human comprehension. The village, in turn, began to heal, the fear that had gripped them slowly giving way to a deeper understanding. In honor of the child and the journey that Nnamdi undertook, the village built a memorial in the forest clearing where the hidden sanctuary had been found. The memorial was a simple stone altar, similar to the one from the ritual, but this time it was surrounded by flowers and symbols of hope. The villagers began to visit the memorial regularly, leaving offerings and prayers for their lost loved ones. The fear that had once gripped the village was replaced with a sense of reverence for the mysteries of life and death.